Diego Ruzzarin is a very, very, very big man in Latin America, but largely unknown to the English-speaking audience. Although he crosses all of the Latin American divides, born in Brazil, living in Mexico, fluent in multiple languages. And I just knew that when we introduced him onto the mother of all talk shows, a new, albeit small, but rich and powerful world would open up for him. Diego Ruzzarin, geopolitical analyst and author, welcome to the mother of all talk shows. You'll need to perform now after a build-up like that, Diego. The conversation I just had with Colonel Douglas McGregor, retired U.S. Army colonel, could scarcely have been more prescient with doom, could scarcely have been more serious, more pessimistic. Is that how you're feeling in the global south? Do they realize how close the global north and west has taken everyone to oblivion?
Well, first of all, thank you so much, George, for having me on. It's a real pleasure to be here. And I do now have to live up to the standards of that amazing presentation. Having said that, it is true. We are 90 seconds away from midnight in the doomsday clock, which people rarely talk about anymore, but it's kind of scary. Having said that, I think the environment in the global south is in a way disconnected from reality, which is scary for us. What I would like to say is that in a way, every time an empire is near its fall, it tends to become highly violent. It tends to clinch to power in a manner that becomes an existential threat to everyone's life. And like Einstein said, and this sentence has been quoted many, many times, is that Einstein didn't know which weapons we were going to use to fight World War III. But he assured us that World War IV was going to be fought with stick and stones, because nothing else was going to be left out of human society. And I think that's the way we need to approach this moment that we are living right now. The existential threat, mutual assured destruction, is something that we should all be aware of. And in the end, what is most worrying about it all is that we're doing it in the name of revenue and profit for a few manufacturing companies in the global north. And in the end, everyone is about to pay a high price for this in a way, madness of capital.
Well, the G20 came to the global south in Brazil just last week. Were there any signs there of people realizing that we're all looking down the barrel of a nuclear gun?
Well, I think the most terrifying sign was President Biden walking into the middle of the jungle after authorizing the use of long-range missiles by Ukraine against Russia. That was already a sign of the apocalypse by itself. But on the other hand, like we met in Kazan in the encounter of BRICS in Russia. According to me now, it's irrefutable that the world is shifting to a new multipolar division that is a world that people uses more and more often. And it's true that you can feel that diplomacy switching places. And hopefully Latin America wakes up and the south of the world wakes up, and we use this moment, this opportunity of changes of relationships of power to find our way into a position where we're actually invited to participate. Because today, the voice of the global south is mostly an echo. Like most countries, and even the G20, it's kind of hard to take the G20 seriously because most decision makers are coming from the north to tell the global south how to behave, what to do, to adopt, eco policies and environmental policies and inclusion, identity politics. This is all coming dictated from the north, which is something that don't really interest the needs and the priorities of the south. We need development. We need industrial potency. We need to take care of the working class. We don't need to be involved into identity politics and whatever is happening into the north of the world. That's why I think the G20 is losing credibility fast and happening so close, happening in a time frame that is so close to the BRICS encounter in Russia. We can already see where the real decisions are being made. We saw that the repercussion of the encounter in BRICS in Kazan was much more influential and determinant to public policy in the global south than the G20 was. This is already a clear indication that the material forces and the material conditions happening underneath propaganda, ideology, spectacle, and media, it's much more important and determinant to what is truly happening in politics. People need to wake up from propaganda. But regardless, the threat of World War III is very much real, and it's also materially determined.
Now, there are at least three, and two main, but there are three theaters in which World War III could break out. One is obviously in Ukraine, the second in the Persian Gulf, and maybe even very, very soon indeed, maybe a matter of hours, days. And the third, though less often talked about now, remains China, in the South China Sea, in the Straits of Taiwan. How do you see those three theaters? Tell us, if you will, with your giant brain, what's going to happen in these three places?
Well, first of all, I have to make the statement that this in a way reflects the crisis of liberalism. It reflects the crisis of democratical fundamentalism, and in a way how democracy and liberal values have become more and more authoritarian and oppressive, and in a way their universal liberal project has to be imposed via military means. Okay, so this is a critical failure of liberal values that we are now seeing in, as you mentioned very concisely, in these three fronts, right? So China, mostly because of the importance of microchips and the development technology and how this technology is fundamental for most sovereignty issues. So that's why it became such a hot topic. But then when we talk about the genocide in Palestine and the conflict in Ukraine, is an extension of Anglo-imperial intentions. In a way, they need a military base in the Middle East. We have known this for a very long time. The price of petroleum is very much dictated by geopolitical stability in the region, so they need a stake. They need to be heard and feared in order to maintain a certain level of hegemony. And Russia has always been motherland. Motherland in the sense that their resources values are way too important. The Baltics have been at war since the dawn of civilization. So everybody has been attacking Russia. They have been invaded several times across history. And this is just the most recent iteration of the fact that whoever is dominating the geopolitical environment is trying to reach out into the pockets of Russians and into their reserve of natural resources. Again, this is all implied and very much explained by material conditions. But what is important for me is that people have to always be critical of whatever is the currently dominating meta-narrative that is trying to be imposed upon us. You know, like human rights and, oh my God, we're fighting against dictatorships and we're doing this in the name of democracy and freedom. And it's mostly bullshit. It's mostly bullshit in the sense that what we truly understand from a positive point of view, not normative, but positive in the Kantian way, what positively means democracy today is war. Democracy is no longer about freedom of expression or about representing the will of the majority. Demoskrasia, the rule of the majorities. That's no longer truth. Positively measured in the world, democracy is today synonym with imperialism, intervention, and war. This is what we need to be truly aware.
Now, if you were advising President Putin, what would you advise him to do about the fact that the United States, Britain, and France are firing cruise missiles into his country? We both remember, me more clearly than you, obviously, the Soviet Union. I asked the viewers earlier, can you imagine any Soviet leader, however gerontocratic they became by the end, allowing 3 NATO countries to fire cruise missiles into their territory? That we'd already be in World War III if that had happened in the Soviet times. So if you were advising President Putin now and Mr. Lavrov, what would you say to them?
So first of all, what a great segue for such an important topic. By definition, leaders, true leaders, they are the ones that take the impossible decisions, the ones that no one else could take. Because when a decision is doable, it's rationable, you can achieve and you can arrive at a solution. But by definition, leaders are the ones that make the impossible decisions at the most crucial times. And this is exactly the example. We already have a historical debt to the people of Russia and to the administration of the Soviet Union. So we don't speak German today. The fact that we're having this conversation in English is mostly thanks to the Soviet army. This is important for us to remember. And right now, we are not at World War III, thanks to the prudence and to the self-control of President Putin and all the high leadership positions in Russia. It's only due to their restraint and to their character that we're able to have this conversation freely today, and that we're not hiding in bunkers, planning for a long winter that everyone is going to decay in. So my advice is that they need urgently to broker a deal with the transition team from President Trump, understanding that this is an act of sabotage from the from the Democrats against the Republicans. This is critical, this is urgent, and needs to be addressed immediately. And I think the more the true international community joins the conversation and understand our stake in the game, we need to push for this conversation to happen. Because I think in the media, this narrative can no longer sustain itself. Nobody it's in favor of this war happening. It's really a minority. This is only being pursued and sponsored by mercenary groups and by manufacturers of arms that are making a killing out of these conflicts. But these wars are heavily unpopular. So we need to raise our voices. We need to reach as much as we can. We need to have these type of conversations that we're having. And I thank you so much for organizing these spaces. And we need to raise awareness, and we need to understand that all our lives are danger if this is not to be done. And we need to be very careful and very supportive and very thankful for President Putin for playing this with such a restraint and a prudence and not letting things get out of hand too quick. I think the fact that Russia showed power by revealing some weapons and just by showing that you guys don't really want to get too far into this because we can make mutual assured destruction. Just by doing that, we are keeping things at bay. But according to me, unless they broker a deal with the transition team in President Trump's team, this won't slow down. On the contrary, I think it's going to get harder and harder the next few days because they're getting close to losing power. So they're trying to make as much money and in a way determine the movement of geopolitics for the next years as much as they can. So these next few weeks are going to be highly critical.
Let me ask a philosophical question, because you are, apart from all your other attributes, a philosopher. I don't actually entirely buy the argument that it's all about money. I get that the military-industrial complex makes and has made tons of money out of recent conflicts and instability. But I don't get how or why capitalists, those who own corporations, those who live such a wonderful life on this earth, at the expense of the many, no doubt. I don't get why they would take the existential risk of nuclear oblivion. There's no profit in that. I gave the example of Elon Musk because I'm very annoyed with him. He has immense media power, but he's not using it at all to rally the public, the majority that you refer to, against the danger of war. He must know if there is a world war, he doesn't have any corporations anymore. He doesn't have any Starlinks anymore. We'll not be going to Mars. We'll be going to hell rather than Mars. Why does globalized capitalism not apply the brakes to what the politicians and the MIC are doing?
Right. So So I agree with your first thesis in the notion that is not everything is determined by money, and we can see this clearly, giving reason to your thesis, the fact that Elon Musk is so heavily favoring Trump. Why? Because he's losing an industrial battle against China with BYD completely destroying his electric vehicle category. So he needs a president that he can instrumentalize in order to assure his economical advantages in the market, right? So he needs protectionism. But this has always been the story of liberalism. Market has never been free. Capital has never been truly free, in the sense that free market capitalism, it's only an ideology imposed to the global south in order to tear down resistances so the north can extract as much surplus value as they can from the south. But there has never existed a truly free market capital. There can never be a truly free market capital, because capital depends on matters of property, on the central emission of money. So free market is completely impossible. It's a pipe dream for metaphysical idealists, right? So having said that, I think that today the divide is between sovereignty, nationalist capitalists, and globalist warmongering capitalists. So in a way, it's the capitalist class that is mostly at war with each other. In the fact that, for example, the Democrats would favor a heads-on confrontation with China directly, while the Republicans prefer a confrontation, a strategic peace with Russia, and then a second degree confrontation with China. So I still believe they are both, in a way, delivering against the interest of the private property of the means of productions and the proliferation of capital. But it's just two different strategies. One is more traditional neoliberalism, like tearing down every type of resistances, physical, moral, geopolitical, national, that resist the proliferation of capital as a self-perpetuating logical system. And then on the other side, conservative capital is much more about nationalizing authority, in a way, authoritarianism, reinforcing national industry to favor local capitalists, where Elon Musk is. But in a way, they both respond to capitalism because they are both defending private property of the means of productions. They're not new meta modes of production. They're not like China or like Russia or like Vietnam, Malaysia, North Korea, or Venezuela. No. They're still defending private property and liberal values. That's why it's confusing when people say liberals and Republicans in the US, because they're both liberals. It's just like democratic liberals and Republican liberals, but they both think under the metaphysical epistemological framework of liberalism. They believe in free will, they believe in the reasonable individual. They're both doing identity politics, just different flavors, and they're both defending private property of the means of productions and the interest of capitals. It's just like they have different sponsors. That's it.
Now, finally, when we were talking in the BRICS conference, in Kazan, we were both, let's put it this way, we were both hoping for Kamala Harris's defeat. We weren't hoping for Donald Trump's victory, but we were both hoping for Kamala Harris's defeat. Were we right or wrong to do so?
I think we're absolutely right. Now, seeing how much the potential war scaled and how much environments are heated, I think it's now clear that the Democrats have completely lost their mind in their lust for money making via war means, which is potentially catastrophic. And in that sense, it's weird to say the lesser of two evils, right? Because in a way, again, the US is losing global hegemony. We are seeing how this decay is happening. No empire has a peaceful decay. This is what we have to keep in mind. Today, we are seeing the violent decay. It's like a predatory animal that will die fighting. So how will they die fighting, and who will they mangle in the process is what is being determined today. I think the second term of Trump can be highly disappointing because he already failed to resolve the internal issues of the country. He did nothing for the working class, just like Biden did nothing for the working class, and Kamala was not going to do nothing for the working class. But I believe again that Trump again is going to do nothing for the working class. So how long they can keep this simulated oscillation of power internal controlled opposition, how long they can sustain this farce for the American for the United States is my question now, and how much is going to cost us as the geopolitical context in which they are losing hegemony. So yes, I think we're absolutely right to root against Kamala Harris, but not necessarily in favor of Donald Trump.
Diego Ruzzarin, A Star is Born, geopolitical analyst and author. I know you were already born in Latin America, but here in the North, in the West. Thank you very much indeed for being with us.